Good afternoon, and may it please the court. My name is Charlotte Gross, and I am the attorney for the petitioner, Mr. John Husted, Ohio Secretary of State. At this time, I would like to request 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Yes.
Thank you. Today, I would like to discuss how Ohio's supplemental process complies with the National Voters Registration Act, specifically Section 20507 that was implemented and approved by Congress. To start, I would like to talk about how the process is a uniform and non-discriminatory, and then I would like to discuss how the supplemental process does not remove anybody from the list for the failure to vote. The purpose of the National Voters Registration Act is to prohibit selective and discriminatory removal programs while upholding the integrity of the voting process. To begin, the supplemental process complies with the National Voters Registration Act because it is uniform and non-discriminatory. It is well established that the court starts by looking at the plain language and the plain meaning of a statute, looks at the statute as a whole when trying to figure out what Congress intended. If the court does not find any ambiguity, then the court does not look any further in interpreting the statute.
But doesn't the statute clearly prohibit the use of taking into account the removal of people for their failure to vote?
The National Voters Registration Act does prohibit the removal for the failure to vote. However, the supplemental process is just that. It is a process. It starts by looking at their failure to vote for 2 years. Then they send a confirmation notice to confirm and to ensure that person still lives at the correct address to make sure their list is up to date. And then after 4 more years, if that person has not used a confirmation notice and has not voted in six consecutive years of federal elections, that is when they will be removed from the voting process. It would not be just solely for the failure to vote. The Senate report looks at the Senate report is aware of the need for states to maintain accurate voting rolls.
Wait, didn't you just say we should only look at the language of the statute? Why are you talking about the Senate report?
I'm talking about the Senate report to give into a look of what Congress thought process when implementing this act.
But why does that matter if the language of the statute is clear?
To show that the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals interpreted the statute very narrowly when they gave an injunction to stop the supplemental process. They added in the word solely. The Senate report considered states' ability to maintain accurate lists, and which is one of the thought processes of why they didn't use the word solely. If Congress intended for the states to solely remove for the failure to vote, they would have added in that word.
But doesn't the word solely actually help you? I mean, were these people removed solely because of their failure to vote under the supplemental process?
No, they were not. They were removed because they did not send back in the confirmation notice that the state asked them to. For example, Congress allows the states to encourage voters and to encourage eligible voters to be registered. Congress allows you to have a mail-in registration form as an accurate form of communication. Here, it would be absurd to not assume that Congress would not also affirm a confirmation notice to confirm that somebody still lives at that address.
Mm-hmm.
If we're looking at the language of the statute, the word non-discriminatory complies. The word non-discriminatory was implemented to uphold the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Voting Rights Act wanted to ensure that nobody was prohibited from racial discrimination. It also describes uniform.
Are the respondents arguing that this law discriminates on the basis of race, the supplemental process?
No, it does not discriminate on the basis of race.
But I
It
mean,
does not
our respondents arguing that it did.
It is a uniform that is applied to every jurisdiction in the state of Ohio, and it applies to every individual in the state of Ohio. It is in uniform with the Voting Rights Act, because it did not apply to just specific races, and it did not apply to just specific jurisdictions. It applies to every individual in the state of Ohio who did not vote for 6 consecutive years in a federal election and who did not return the supplemental process when it was sent, and that did not file a change of address with the United States Postal Service. Congress was also aware of the fundamental right to vote, which is why Congress also implemented the Help America Vote Act, which allows a provisional ballot to be filled out if somebody appears at the voting poll and their name is not on the list. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Doesn't the statute establish a general rule against removing voters from the voter rolls?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Doesn't the statute establish a general rule against removing voters on the voter rolls?
The statute says that the voter rolls cannot be removed for the failure to vote. So I apologize, maybe I don't understand.
Well, there's a provision of the statute, I don't remember which one it is right now, that says voters should not be removed from the voting rolls, except, and there's a few exceptions. But doesn't that establish a general rule against removing them?
Yes, the statute says that they should not be removed unless they have committed a felony or for death or incapacitated. However, Ohio is not removing for the failure to vote. They're removing for not communicating with the state, for their lack of sending in a confirmation notice when they were requested to by the state.
Well, what exception does the supplemental process fall under?
The state is allowed to implement any program as long as it is uniform, non-discriminatory, does not remove for the failure to vote, and it will maintain accurate lists to uphold the integrity of voting.
But doesn't it also have to fall within an exception to the general rule against removing people?
As it falls within. The supplemental process is not explicitly stated in the National Voters Registration Act. However, the National Voters Registration Act does give states the ability to maintain lists to uphold the integrity, accurate lists, up-to-date lists. And that's exactly what the supplemental process does. It is a program the state has implemented to ensure accurate lists are maintained and the integrity of the voting process is maintained. The federal government has very little involvement in maintaining the voters registration list, which is why they give the power to the states to maintain those lists.
Where does it give where in the statute is the secretary authorized to maintain voting lists that you're talking about, maintain the integrity of the voting lists?
Mm-hmm. So the National Voter Registration is to give the states is a guideline saying you cannot discriminate. It has to be applied to everybody, and we have to make sure that nobody is removed for the failure to vote. The state is giving the discretion as under those broad interpretations, as long as they follow certain steps to implement a process to make sure the maintenance lists are accurate. And that's exactly what Ohio did. They are acting within Congress's intentions. So to conclude, this court should reverse this Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals as they read the statute too narrowly and to lift the injunction of Ohio's supplemental process because Ohio read the unambiguous plain language of the statute and complied with Congress's intent. Thank you.